Let me ask you something honestly. Are you absolutely sure you know what she really wants in bed? Or are you just guessing? What if I told you that what she fantasizes about and what she actually says out loud are often two completely different worlds? And what if 40 to 50% of women share certain bold fantasies, but would never bring them up first, not because they don't want them, but because they're afraid of how you'll react? This is not about adult movies, it's not about shock value, and it's definitely not about becoming extreme. This is about female psychology, neuroscience, and emotional safety. Because here's the truth most men miss. Women don't lack fantasy. They lack safety to express it. And when fantasy has no safe place to exist, it stays silent. Silence turns into routine. Routine turns into boredom. And boredom gets mistaken for low libido. But often it's not low desire, it's unspoken desire. Today we're breaking down 10 things women often want, grouped by psychology, not shock factor. And the final one? It's not what you think. Stay with me. Point 1. Power and control. When surrender becomes liberating. Let's start with something that surprises many men. Dominance dynamics, light spanking, being gently overpowered, structured control. Before your brain jumps to extremes, slow down. This is not about violence, it's not about harm, and it's definitely not about disrespect. It's about trust. In many studies on sexual fantasy, dominance and submission themes consistently rank high among women. Why? Because controlled surrender is psychologically powerful. Imagine a woman who spends all day making decisions. She manages work, family, deadlines, responsibilities. She is always in control. Now imagine the relief of temporarily giving that control to someone she trusts. Not because she is weak, but because she is exhausted from being strong. When control is handed over consensually, the nervous system can actually relax. Dopamine increases from novelty and intensity. Endorphins increase from heightened sensation. Trust deepens when boundaries are respected. Here's a real pattern. She responds strongly when you lead confidently. She melts when your voice becomes slower and grounded. She reacts to decisiveness. But she will rarely be the first to say, "I want you to take control." Why? Because she's afraid you'll judge her, afraid you'll think she has trauma, afraid you'll see her differently, especially if she carries the good girl identity. So she waits, and if you never create psychological safety, it stays fantasy. Let me ask you something. Do you react calmly when she hints at something slightly bold, or do you joke, laugh, or look surprised? Because your reaction determines whether she ever opens that door again. Point 2. Being watched. The desire to be intensely seen. Now let's talk about something more subtle. Exhibitionism and voyeuristic elements. Not public chaos, not reckless behavior, but the feeling of being watched, desired, visually consumed. When someone looks at you with focused desire, dopamine spikes. The brain loves attention mixed with mild taboo. That slight edge of "this feels daring" activates arousal pathways. Many women don't necessarily want an audience. They want to feel like the spotlight. They want you unable to look away. Notice patterns. Does she like mirrors? Does she respond when the lights aren't completely off? Does she glow when you describe what you find attractive in detail? Specific praise activates reward circuits. Not "you're sexy," but "I love the way your hips move when you slow down." "I can't stop looking at your neck." "I've been thinking about touching you all day." Detail equals intentional desire. So why won't she ask for this? Because culture teaches women to be modest, not attention-seeking, not too much. So instead of saying, "I want you to watch me," she waits for you to show that you already are. If this resonates, type "seen" in the comments. Because being seen is one of the most powerful aphrodisiacs. Point 3. Sensory amplification. Why less can feel like more. Now we enter something fascinating. Remove one sense, and the others amplify. When vision is reduced, for example through a blindfold, the brain reallocates attention. Touch becomes stronger, sound becomes sharper, anticipation increases dramatically. Anticipation is dopamine fuel. When the brain doesn't know exactly when something will happen, it lights up. Uncertainty creates heightened focus. That's why a simple pause before touch can feel electric. It's not about intensity, it's about unpredictability within safety. Let me paint a scene without being explicit. Imagine she can't see what's coming next. Every movement feels amplified. Every breath matters. Every pause stretches time. The nervous system becomes hyper-aware. But here's the key. This only works when trust is strong. Because sensory reduction also creates vulnerability. And vulnerability without safety equals anxiety. Anxiety kills arousal. This is why she won't ask for it casually. She needs to know you won't misuse that vulnerability. She needs to feel chosen, not tested. And if she trusts you, the same simple touch feels twice as intense. We're just getting started. In the next part, we're going deeper into roleplay, identity shifts, and the number one fantasy that outranks them all. And it's not what most men assume. Stay with me. Now let's move into something even more misunderstood, roleplay. Not because she wants to be someone else, but because sometimes she wants permission to step outside who she has to be every day. Think about her real life. She might be a professional, a mother, a partner, the responsible one, the calm one. She carries identities constantly. Roleplay offers something psychologically powerful. Temporary identity freedom. Novelty activates dopamine. Dopamine fuels desire. Routine lowers dopamine over time. This isn't about dissatisfaction. It's about the brain needing variation. When she imagines being the stranger, the teacher, the bad girl, or the mysterious woman at a bar, she's not rejecting who she is. She's expanding who she's allowed to be. And expansion feels alive. Here's something interesting. Many women respond strongly to storytelling. Not explicit detail, but context, build-up, imagination. When you shift from purely physical interaction to narrative tension, her mind engages. And the brain is the most powerful organ involved in arousal. Notice patterns. Does she respond more when you create anticipation through words? Does her energy shift when there's playful tension or a hint of a scenario? Does surprise amplify her reaction more than repetition? That's novelty at work. So why won't she suggest roleplay first? Because it sounds weird when spoken plainly. Because she fears being misunderstood. Because she worries you'll laugh or dismiss it. Fantasy feels vulnerable when spoken out loud, and vulnerability requires safety, which brings us to the most important point of all. Point 5. The number one fantasy, being intensely desired. This is the climax of everything, and it's not a specific act, it's a feeling. Research consistently shows that one of the most common fantasies among women is being intensely desired, not politely wanted, not casually interested, but deeply, unmistakably chosen. Think about the emotional weight of that. When a woman feels desired, not just physically but intentionally, her entire nervous system shifts. Oxytocin increases, dopamine increases, self-esteem rises, arousal follows naturally. She doesn't necessarily need a complex script. She needs to feel like you've been thinking about her, like your attraction isn't accidental, like your attention isn't distracted. This is where many men get it wrong. They wait for permission, they approach cautiously, they act unsure. But desire communicated with grounded confidence is magnetic, not aggressive, not entitled, grounded. It sounds like, "I've been wanting you all day. I love how you react when I touch you like that. I can't stop thinking about the way you looked earlier." Specific, intentional, focused. Notice what's happening psychologically. You're not asking for validation, you're giving it. And when she feels intensely desired, she relaxes into that role. So why doesn't she say, "I want to feel more desired"? Because it sounds needy, because she doesn't want to beg for attention, because she fears appearing insecure. So she waits to see if you initiate that energy naturally. And when you do, everything changes. In the final part, we're pulling this all together, because the real twist is not about kink, not about boldness, not about shock, it's about psychological safety, and why your reaction determines whether fantasy becomes reality or stays silent forever. Stay with me. Now here's the revelation most men don't see coming. Women don't lack fantasies, they lack a safe space to express them. Read that again. It's not about how wild the fantasy is. It's not about how experienced you are. It's not about how open-minded you think you are. It's about how safe she feels when she reveals something vulnerable. Because every fantasy we discussed, power dynamics, being watched, sensory play, role play, intense desire, shares one psychological foundation: trust. If she senses even a hint of judgment, even a micro expression of surprise, even a nervous laugh. Her brain registers risk, and when the brain registers risk, it protects. Protection equals silence. Silence equals routine. Routine equals boredom. And boredom gets mislabeled as low desire, but often it's suppressed desire. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment she tests you with something small, a playful comment, a subtle hint, a light joke about something bold, she's not just flirting. She's measuring your reaction. Do you stay calm? Do you lean in with curiosity? Or do you retreat, tease, or dismiss? Your reaction teaches her what's safe, and safety determines how deep intimacy can go. Let's compress the 5 core insights. Power dynamics are not about violence. They are about consensual surrender rooted in trust. Exhibitionistic elements are not about attention. They are about feeling intensely desired. Sensory play is not about control. It's about amplifying anticipation and dopamine. Roleplay is not about escaping reality. It's about expanding identity and activating novelty. And the number one fantasy? Being deeply, unmistakably wanted. Not casually, not politely, not passively, chosen. Here's the deeper psychological layer. When a woman feels judged, her nervous system shifts into alert mode. Alert mode reduces relaxation. Reduced relaxation lowers sensitivity. Lower sensitivity makes climax harder. This is not abstract theory. It's neurobiology. Stress and arousal compete in the body. If she's worried about how you perceive her, part of her brain is monitoring threat, and monitoring kills surrender. But when she feels accepted, her body softens, her breathing deepens, her imagination opens, fantasy thrives in safety. Now let's talk about what you can actually do. First, stop asking in a joking tone. So, are you into anything kinky? That question creates pressure. Instead, model vulnerability first. Share something mild about your own curiosity. Not extreme, not performative, just honest. Second, say clearly and calmly, you can tell me anything. I won't judge you. And mean it. Third, regulate your reaction. Even if something surprises you, stay grounded. Stay curious. Curiosity builds bridges. Judgment builds walls. Fourth, start light. Small sensory shifts. Slight changes in tone. More intentional eye contact. A slower, more grounded lead. Build gradually. Trust compounds over time. And here's the most important insight of this entire conversation. Fantasies do not damage relationships. Negative reactions to fantasies do. When someone opens up and is met with shame, they close permanently. But when someone opens up and is met with acceptance, desire expands. Let me ask you something honestly. If she told you her boldest fantasy tonight, would your reaction make her feel safer or smaller? Because that answer determines the future of your intimacy. Now I want to hear from you. What surprised you the most in this breakdown? Was it the psychology of power, the role of novelty, or the realization that the biggest fantasy is simply being intensely desired? Comment below. Like this video if you want more science-backed insights into female psychology and relationships. Share this with someone who still thinks intimacy is just about performance. And subscribe if you want to build real connection, not just physical interaction. Because at the highest level, intimacy is not about technique, it's about trust. And trust is what turns fantasy into reality.